Welcome to Innovators Unscripted, the podcast for innovators by innovators. Today, Tina and I are joined by the amazing and inspiring Kaylee Baldwin, another member of our Chicago 2024 cohort. Kaylee, we are so excited to reconnect with you and share your story. But before we dive in, can you give us and our listeners a quick introduction to who you are and a little bit about where you are now?
My name is Kaylee, of course. I am located in the state of New Jersey in the United States. I am a district-wide instructional technology facilitator. So I work with all teachers and students in a K-12 school district across 24 buildings and about 1,800 instructional staff and about 13,000 students to coach and provide technology professional development. And that is the current role that I have. And then outside of that, I'm still presenting at conferences and, trying to just continue to see what other ed tech tools are out there.
Awesome. All right. We usually like to start off with a little icebreaker of like a browser tab confession, but since you are part of our cohort had something special that I think not all cohorts had. And that's when we arrived at the academy, they gave each of us a pack of 52 trading cards, but those trading cards were all of ourselves. And so part of the conversation and the activities that we were doing is every time we talked to a new innovator, we were supposed to trade those trading cards. And Kaylee, I have your trading card. Tina, I also have yours and mine here. We can see what they look like. They have our little picture on them, where we're from. And then on the back, it has a fun fact. And one of the things I loved about the Innovator Academy was that as we traded cards, the first thing I would kind of do is flip it over and be like, oh, wow. And we would talk a little bit about that fun fact. So, Kaylee, if it's okay with you, I'm going to read your fun fact and then maybe you could tell us a little story about it. So, this is Kaylee's card from the Academy. We're going back 2 years now. And it says, fun fact, I am a plant lady. I care for indoor plants, outdoor plants, and I even crochet plants.
Yes, as you can see with my background, I have a love of plants. This is a virtual background, but I did take this photo. But for my plant love, I have about only about 10 plants in my house right now. Still propagating some. And then for my crocheted plants, I made at the time of the Chicago Innovator Academy, I had made this succulent, which when you take it out, it's all little coasters. But when you put it all together and you put it in a little basket that I made, it looks like a little succulent. So um, ever since then, I've crocheted many other plants and many other projects. Most recently, a bouquet blanket with sunflowers on the end. So still plant related, but expanding my horizons.
That is seriously impressive. I was just saying that I can't keep plants alive and I can't crochet well. But one interesting fact about our cohort from 2024 is with the Innovator Academy, they have all of us sort of share out like an interesting topic or an interesting thing that we get to do. And Kaylee had us crochet, and it was the first time we ever crocheted. And we were just discussing how all of us like have started to try and do that, and we're getting much better at it, all because of Kaylee. So going into the academy idea, let's hop back in our time machine, I like to say, to our cohort, our very own cohort, 2024. So give us some background on your experience and what was your overall problem you were trying to tackle?
Yeah, so going into even my application, leading into the academy, there was a lot of legislation in the United States and a lot of um, experiences that were getting media attention around student experiences in schools, surrounding different bullying, specifically with LGBTQ students. And the passion that I have for this community is, just astronomical. So this one really hit close to my heart, and I wanted to emphasize how are we able to use the leverage as innovators to educate others, and how might we create safe spaces for students of all genders and identities to be able to like come and learn and grow in a school environment because I don't always see that that is the first goal. It's usually maybe a little later on down the line. But we know that unless we feel that we are in a place where we feel safe, we can't learn. So that was really at the forefront of my problem. And I was fortunate to get accepted to the academy and go and tackle that there with our design thinking sprint. And it was just really an awesome experience.
So your project did center on amplifying youth voices. Tell me a little bit more about, like, was there anything in your district that you saw being a concern, or was there anything that had inspired you to focus in this direction? Because I understand you said like it was legislature happening at that time and you noticed that. Like, was there a personal account or a situation that might have happened that led you to want to really focus on that?
Nothing that I saw personally in my district, but some of the things that I was seeing, like I said, in the media, kind of coming out of different experiences with students in Texas or students in other states. And then I kind of circled it back to, thinking about my high school experience and thinking about what, amazing gains have been made since then. I'm only 31 now, so it wasn't that long ago, but still, even from then until now, there has been a lot of gains and there's still a long way to go. So I think for me, it was more just seeing and thinking that certain obstacles had been overcome and realizing that they still weren't overcome yet. So my, crux here was how do I educate educators while also hearing from youth that are currently experiencing this and use their voices and their experiences that they are, willing to share with me um, to kind of give these educators a real world, scenario of, hey, this is really still happening. We are still maybe not showing students the respect they deserve or, giving them that place where they can come in and learn and grow in a safe environment. And how are we working on that as educators? How are we creating the environment for us to learn so that we can be better, so that our classrooms can be better for our students. And so that was really like more of the personal connection for me, just like thinking we had, maybe gotten to a certain place of growth and realizing that we weren't quite there yet.
Wow. Yeah, your passion around this area is always something that I've admired about you, and it's clear why you were accepted to the Innovator Academy based on your passion around this challenge. And like you said, it's a continuing, evolving challenge. There's no checkbox for this one. But the work that you've done that I'm so excited to share this story and talk to you about has been so inspirational. So let's talk about the Academy itself. And so you came in with this giant challenge and all of this passion and personal connection to go along with it. And then we go into this area where we're doing all of these design thinking like sprints and sparks and looking at it from far away and close. Can you talk to us a little bit about the process? We talk about pivoting a lot and failing forward of your time in the academy around this challenge.
Yeah. So part of the Innovator application, for anyone that doesn't know, is that you need to be able to do some research on if there are any solutions to your problem that you're presenting, or if there's not, what type of resources are currently out there. So coming to the Academy, I had already done a lot of research with the Trevor Project, with the Human Rights Campaign, with some local organizations in my state to kind of see what type of educational materials were out there. And so coming into this, I really wanted to think about how do we scale that impact and what can that look like. When we were doing the design sprints, it was very much like I was thinking on a really small level, and they continued to push me to think bigger and bigger and bigger and think about like what would be the greatest impact and how could we, you know, proactively make that change. Um, I found it challenging though, because it was hard to think about how to like put my hands on that. How do I like what steps do I even take in that direction to then start that? So I think what was really great about the academy was being able to think about that big, impact change, and then be able to use, some feedback from our peers and some feedback from the facilitator, Les Macbeth, to kind of understand what steps we could begin to take to start that. And for me, I originally, didn't have an idea of any solution. And when I got to the academy, my first solution evolved and evolved and evolved until it became what it is today. So I was really glad to be able to come out of, the academy with a concrete idea and be able to run with it. Um, but it was definitely a lesson in, how do we continue to use that process of iteration and then kind of take that into the rest of the projects that we're doing all over the place.
I think it's so seriously impressive what you managed to do. I remember meeting you with the cohort and I was like, she is tackling such a big, meaningful thing. And I couldn't wrap my head around because we would have all these conversations, right? And I'm like, oh, she's trying to do youth voices and she's trying to develop this whole idea. And it's true, you start out small and then you're like reiterating to get bigger and bigger. And so you had ended up turning them into like one page resources, right? And you share them at Pride events and all over for professional development and things. And so I think it would be really fascinating here the idea of how did technology help form these perspectives? Like, how did you use Google and technology, maybe in ways that people hadn't thought of? Because you do come in with these big ideas, and I think as innovators, people sometimes get stuck. Like, it has to be a tech problem, but it can actually be like a much bigger situation that you can use it in a really powerful way, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I also came in with that notion that, oh, this is something that I'm really passionate about. This is a topic that I definitely see a need for, but I didn't feel like it was techy enough, so I didn't know if I would be accepted to the academy. So once I got accepted and was still working on this problem, it was interesting to see how technology weaves itself into all of the areas that I ended up like where I ended up going and creating this because when I got home from the academy, I had an email from a local organization asking for volunteers to come and work with LGBTQ youth at a summer camp. And from that email piece of technology, I was able to then physically go. I worked the summer camp. I got connected with these youth, and they are all over the state. So when we think about how do we connect, how do we continue this conversation, the organization then held a youth advisory board, which connected over Zoom at monthly meetings. So then I was attending those monthly meetings. So then from there, I surveyed them. Well, I'm not physically with you, so I'm using a Google form to then send out a survey to you, which then you're submitting to me. And because it was an open link, it wasn't just for the youth advisory board. Some of them asked, like, hey, can I share this with other students in my school? Can I take this and share this with my community or my county? Like, absolutely, go ahead and take that. So then it was able to be spread even wider because it was a digital resource that could be accessed by anyone anywhere. And then I took that information and I was able to pull it into a Google Sheet, analyze the data, align kind of what were the high hitting points that I saw culminating based on the responses. And then I manually went through and created, not using a template, my own one pagers on Canva. And I like to say that because when I originally presented it to them, they were like, wow, these look great. Like, what template did you use? I said, no, I created all of this from scratch. Like, this was not a template. I understand like it's very easy to use Canva as a graphic design platform, but this is unique to you and unique to this topic. And I wanted to be very intentional with like, how am I structuring these pages? What does that look like? How are we addressing these words and highlighting some of this imagery? So all of those graphic design elements, bringing that into it. And then I was able to turn those one pagers into concrete pieces that got printed out and then also highlighted on this organization's website, which is now public for anyone to access. So I think the idea that technology doesn't have to be the center of the problem, but can enhance and enlighten whatever solution you're looking for really, really is highlighted in my situation because my problem did not necessarily need technology as, what we were looking to solve, but it would not have been possible without technology as part of the solution.
Wow, what an amazing evolution of your project. Like I had goosebumps as you were describing, like, oh, and then there was the email, and then there were like this whole path. It's like you can see how you are truly just like doing what you were meant to do. And that this was such a passion project, but then like all of the pieces just fell into place. So there's that inspirational side of it. But then this is also a perfect example of the balance of the human component like the human focus and then the intentional technology integration. Like it is such a balanced approach. Like this could be a case study for like a doctoral program around the exact process that you just explained, because at every step along the way it was a human focus, and then it was like what can we use technology for to amplify or to augment or to help this human challenge, this human voice. And that now it culminates with, and I don't think it's culminating. I don't think it's over. I think you're still going. You're shooting for the stars, but now you have this amazing resource that you've developed. The intentionality behind developing your own, like I can see the value in that too, in developing your own visuals to go along with it, not using a template. It just shows that passion that you put into it. So Tina was asking about tech. I'm going to kind of flip and focus on that human side. You've been doing this amazing work with these kids and with these organizations and these leaders. Is there a moment, like a human moment in there that's really stood out to you along this process?
Yeah, so in the iteration process with the one pagers, I collected the information and then I basically made a presentation for the kids before I even started the one pagers. And I won't say kids, I'll say youth for the youth in this environment. So I made a presentation. I shared all of my findings with them first because I really wanted to make sure that what they wanted to communicate to the world, that I was synthesizing that with accuracy and with fidelity. And so I shared that presentation and they all gave me, the thumbs up. And then when I went to make the one pagers, I shared the one pagers with them as well. And that was also an iterative process. Like, here's what I have. I want to hear your thoughts. And these can be tweaked. It's not a final draft. And um, one of the students said to me, I'm trying to find the quote because I did write it down. Um, one of the students said to me basically that from my, you know, illustration, not only just in the imagery, but in the words, that I so encapsulated what they were trying to communicate that they felt truly seen and heard and validated, and that it was exactly how they wanted to make sure that they came across to the adult community. And that moment for me was so powerful because that was my goal. That was my whole goal, right? Like, obviously, having the physical product at the end of it was amazing, and having the digital resource at the end of it is amazing. But even if I was only able to validate and make one youth seen and heard, that would have also achieved my goal. And fortunate for me, I was able to do that for many more, and hopefully for many more beyond that that I don't even know because, right, like this is now a resource that's out there that's hopefully positively continually affecting the youth. But that was just something that really stood out to me because I could not have imagined that kind of feedback, or the way that that person was able to even convey to me so much in a heartfelt way that that was really exactly what they wanted to say and exactly how they wanted to be heard.
Oh, that I know I listen there like, well, this is a good one. I think it's just so meaningful what you managed to do because once again, if you're thinking about an innovator project, I think so many people think about the end product, right? And you were saying like, I'm so happy that like I made the end product and I was, I finished something, but I think what makes your work so valuable and also so effective is the fact that you took the students, you met with them, you were on Zoom calls with them, you were in that space with them to hear what they needed. And I think it's just so impressive that you were able to take all of those ideas with the help of technology and just build that out to something that was just truly like encouraging for all of these students at this time and what they needed. And so I think would be interesting for our listeners to hear is like, what do you think the students would want educators to understand most? You shared one beautiful comment about how the student like felt really, like really listened to and very much heard. Like, was there any common theme or common like issues or situations that you heard that you're like, that has to be a one pager or here's some of the most valuable one pagers I made hearing what the students had to say.
Yeah, so the top five topics that kind of like came out from their from the form feedback that I originally got was understanding mental health and resources that are available to them, understanding just general like identity and definitions and just like general information that maybe there might be misunderstandings around. Um, Using person first language. So, we talk about this a lot. And from my special ed background, I think about this from, the lens of ability or disability. So, when we think about person first language, that also applies to students in the LGBTQ community who are thinking about, maybe they are transgender, or maybe they are identifying with a different name than is listed there. And instead of calling them by what you think they should be called by, just asking them, hey, what would you like to be called by? Because it's not just our students who maybe identify in that community. It's also, a very normal thing for someone to say, like, hey, I have a nickname that like my parents call me or my friends call me. And I would just prefer if you use that name. It might not have anything else to do with how they identify besides that one simple thing. And so kind of understanding that as part of that person first language. Um, Respect and having the respect piece be something that it seems understood. It seems like a general um, norm that we all understand the respect that we are each deserving of as human beings. And sometimes that just isn't the case. And so we wanted to be very clear and intentional with this is something that, if maybe this is not the way that you think. Maybe this is something you need to educate yourself on. Um, and then also thinking about HIB and bullying. What does that look like for hate speech? How do we identify those things, and who do we go to, and how do we get those supports that we might need in these different areas? So those were some of the different areas that kind of came to light as being, the heavy hitters with the overall topic. But I think the most common thing that I heard from the youth was basically like, hey, I would love to just be seen for the way that I'm presenting myself to you, um, no matter what that is. So if I am coming into class and I'm always wearing like this bomber jacket. And then my teacher says, like, hey, that's like a really awesome jacket and you rock it. And that's amazing. You're just acknowledging the way that I like to show up in the world. and you're giving me a compliment that the way that I'm showing up is authentic to me, and like that's really validating, right? Or, if I come into your room and you set a norm the first day of class, like, hey, I'm going to do roll call, but please tell me what name you would prefer to be called. It doesn't have to be anything about your gender or your identity in any other way except for what name would you prefer or how would you like to be referred to in class. And then that can just set a really easy leveled norm for your whole class that, like, this is how I would like to be referred to. And this is the respect that I'm giving you. Like, you're going to come into my room and you're going to call me Miss Baldwin because that is how, as a teacher, I would prefer to be addressed. You're not going to call me Kaylee. You're not going to come in and say bro, right? So when you come into my classroom, I'm also going to call you by however you would like to be called, as long as it's not inappropriate or slanderous in any way. So I think just those things were really the ones that stood out from the youth, basically saying if we can start there, everything else builds off of that, right? And for a lot of people in a lot of places, those are very common accepted norms. But for a lot of other people in a lot of other places, it's not. And so that's just something that we want to be aware of and how we want to kind of move through the world, right?
You're tackling some incredibly complex topics, but you've taken it to a level of this human first piece that makes it really attainable and an easy entry point for anyone. And I think that is something that is so truly inspirational about you, is that you're not running away from these complex conversations, but you're also clearly respecting every member of those conversations by giving everyone a road to respect and to acknowledge each other as humans first, which is just so amazing. Every time you talk, I have goosebumps and I have like tears welling up in my eyes because it's just so attainable. And you make it sound not so simple, but simple enough to move forward, right? It's that step that we can take for these youth and for other humans in general. So oh my gosh, you're amazing. But you mentioned in there a little bit about your special education background, which is so interesting that you have that lens of inclusion and that lens of individualized support that you now carry with you. And now you're in this role as the instructional technology facilitator in your district. And I'm wondering how you take these passions and these lenses and these perspectives that you have and bring them into that role as you're supporting educators. Can you talk to us a little bit about the influence that that has on the work you're doing now?
Yeah, I think that it has a huge influence on the work that I do now. And it's so funny the timing of our interview right now, or podcast right now, because I just was facilitating a training with some of my colleagues 2 weeks ago, and there was a teacher who got super, super frustrated. And I just sat down right in front of her and I was like, that's okay. If this doesn't work for you, let's look at where we can just start in a way that does work for you. And she looked at me and she's like, I can tell you taught special education because she's also a teacher of special education. So but she was like, okay, great. Like, thank you, because I'm really frustrated. And it really made me think about when our students learn something new and they just like hit that ceiling of, I can't take in any more information because I don't know how to process this. Um, and now I'm done, right? When we're working with adults, I don't want to say that it's a smaller amount of a threshold, but sometimes because we have our grading, our feedback, our parent communication, our administrative communication, our SGOs, our PDPs, everything that we're doing, sometimes when we're going and attending professional development as an educator, we might only have like 5 minutes. Like I might give you 5 minutes of my time. And then if I don't feel like I am bought into this, then I'm going to tune out the whole rest of your session. With students, maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes, right? Maybe that threshold is longer. But with educators, it's almost shorter because there's so much other um, mental load that is a part of being an educator and what this looks like. And I'm speaking more from a public school lens. I don't know what this looks like in private school or all alternative schools or anything like that. Um, but yes, when I go into different coaching methods or different professional developments, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, how do I reach everyone in terms of accessibility? Am I turning on captioning when I'm doing a live presentation? If there is a microphone provided for me, I am using it, no matter what the person says. Like, I understand and respect presenters who are like, I don't need a microphone. I'm going to use my teacher voice because you feel like that makes you more on a level set with the participants. And I can empathize with that. I used to do that too until I thought about it from the lens of accessibility. And I thought about, okay, what if there's someone in the room who has a hearing aid? Or what if there's someone in the room who, has another type of auditory need or visual need, and me using a microphone could help them, and I don't realize it, right? So even just like small things like that. Um, I also try to think about, when we put text on presentations, what colors we use on presentations, the different types of visuals we use. When we're in rooms, when we've all been there, the lights are all on, and if I just turn one switch, all of them go off. So I'm not going to turn all of them off because I don't want you to fall asleep. But then now I have a projector that's like not really showing super clearly. And so I want to make sure that like anytime I'm creating materials that like no matter if it's a really bright projector or if it's a really dull projector, you'll be able to see the material. Am I making sure that I have a short link and a QR code? So that way, if you wanted to access it on your phone or a tablet, you could do so. Or if you wanted to access it on your district provided device, you could do so, right? So all of these different types of things are definitely influences from my training as a special educator. And I've now taken it to a point where I'm so invested and wanting to learn and grow more in this area, specifically for accessibility for adults and for the community, because my community in my school district, it's not only about a screen reader or, a microphone, it's also about a language, right? We have multiple families who speak a different language in their home as their first language. So now we're bridging, not only can you see the captions, but are the captions translated? Not only is this PDF flyer that we're sending out to the community accessible by a screen reader, but do we have it translated into all the languages that we need it translated into? And is that accessible on our website via a friendly link that you will be able to recognize? So there's just so many layers that I could, dive even deeper into, but that is definitely something that influences the work that I do.
We have covered a lot of ground. Oh my goodness. We need to like make a part two and a part three and just dive deeper and deeper because everything you're saying is just so attainable. And it's very clear that you know exactly who you're advocating for, which is everyone. And you know the steps to take to do it. And it's because of all those perspectives and lenses along the way. So actually, we're going to kind of circle all the way back to this girl from 2024. And so I'm wondering if you could go back and give 2024 Kaylee or any innovator who's getting ready to go to an academy or applying for an academy a piece of advice as they're getting ready to send in their application or as you are getting ready to send in your application. What's one little gem of advice that you would give to 2024 Kaylee?
Um, I would say don't second guess your problem, because the thing that you see a need for and that you are most passionate about will lead you towards solutions that you could never have thought of.
What a perfect piece of advice. And that's a good piece of advice for anyone. I feel like I even need that right now with some of the things I'm working on. So thank you, Kaylee. And then while we have you, is there anything special you want to talk about that you have coming up? I hear you have a really cool event coming up in the near future. Do you want to tell us just a little bit about that?
Sure. So, I'll give a very short backstory. So previous to the Innovator Academy, there were Google Champions symposiums, if you heard of those. And so in 2022, I was very fortunate enough to attend a champion symposium in Ireland, and I was able to connect with a lot of folks throughout the EMEA region, some other people that came from the States as well, who I've definitely become closer with. Um, and one such person, his name is Kevin Sherman. He is a Google he's a Google champion himself, but he also is he runs Cloud EDU, which is a African like Google partner. So they, are very much involved in the Africa region, and he runs the premier STEAM conference through Innovate EDU, which is the primary program. And it's usually held in South Africa in either Johannesburg or Cape Town. And this year, I am so fortunate to have been one of the 8 invited international speakers to go and share and present and get to work with South African educators from all across the region in this Premier STEAM conference. So I'm so thrilled and so excited. It's really quite an honor to be invited. And I just know that if it weren't for this community, I would not have made, this connection and it would not have led to this place. So it's just a testament to, finding your people, going where you feel led and having, good things come of it.
You're just incredible. I just have to highlight something that has always stood out for me for Kaylee is that like you have this incredible ability to create spaces where people feel seen, valued, understood, from the area of students to teachers to people you're coaching. And that's just not easy to do. And you always have such a lasting impact with so many different things. So I think one of our biggest takeaways for our listeners today is remember, don't second guess yourself, right? Like lean into that passion, trust your perspective, and you can totally make a difference in the community. Kaylee did it. It's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your insight, your passions with us today. For our listeners, if there's something that was sparked or an idea that resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you're an Innovator alum, then come on our show. We want to hear your story. We would love to have you as a guest. If you are actually an aspiring innovator and you have a big something you want to tackle or you want to discuss through your passions, come on in. So come on to our show. We want to have you. And we're hoping you will come join us and hear another podcast the next time. So stay connected, stay inspired, and remember to keep it unscripted.